All right, we're back, breaking down this commercialized shot. This time we're in the kitchen. There's blood on kids' faces. Dads are pissed. This sister's had enough of the family as well. But we're not here fixing family drama, we're here for cinematography. So this is a commercial that I shot with a crew of other great people, and it's mostly centered around this table here with a few other shots of him entering and stuff, but it's pretty simple, but there's always a few things to consider on a shoot like this. So the gear we shot this on was my red Komodo, and we used the Cooke Speed Panchro lenses, the new rehoused ones. Well, we used one Cooke lens. We used the 40. For the whole shoot, we used the 40mm lens. And you're probably thinking, why would you do that? But honestly, we put the 40 on for the first shot, and it worked out that that was a good lens for the first shot. And then we moved on to the next shot, which also looked good on the 40. Next minute, we shot the whole thing on the 40. So that's what it just ended up being. So the camera settings for this were mainly wide open at 2.1, which is what that lens goes to. And all the other camera settings are quite normal. 5600 Kelvin, 180 shutter, 25 frames, nothing special. So the look of this ad wanted to be late afternoon because it's after school. So this was all done in an 8-hour day, I think we did this in. So we probably had, say, 45 minutes for some shots, and then a lot of shots around this table. So, some are like 10, 15 minutes for each shot around the table. This was the direction of the house relative to the sun. So the sun never really went in this main window. Maybe at the start of the day in the morning, but we were setting up for about an hour or two, so it didn't really affect us. Which is a good thing, because if you're lighting through the same window that the sun's coming through, it's gonna go in and out of clouds and it's gonna affect your lighting. So usually you don't wanna have the sun coming through the same window that you're lighting through. And with some of these shots, you're probably thinking, hey Lewis, why the f would you film half the shot with a blank white wall in there? And the reason this framing is a little strange is because originally there was gonna be some text on the screen, so we had to leave room for that. Okay, so this was the first shot that established the look of the ad. It's three people talking at a table, and we're saying that the light is coming from this direction. So outside this window, we had a 1.2K HMI, I think is what it was, and that's going through a 4x4 grid of diffusion. Then it's going through the curtains as well. Then next to that, we had this ellipsoidal light, and I'm not sure what brand it was, but that's creating that hard light on the table. And the reason I like using hard light like that, which you might have seen in some of my videos, is that not only does it add a bit more contrast to the scene, having these bits of light everywhere, it also makes it feel a bit more real. Rather than having a hard backlight, perfectly hitting the entire head, just having a splash on the arm or the table or wherever, it feels less staged, because lighting can feel quite fake sometimes. I find it's a balance between making it look good and real, but not too perfect. Squarespace is an all-in-one website building platform that you can use to build your professional or personal website online. Whether you want to run an online store, or if you're a cinematographer like me and you just want to show your portfolio of work, everything's built into the site with easy-to-use drag-and-drop templates to fit any profession. If you want to build a website, you can start a free trial at squarespace.com/LewisPotts to get 10% off the first purchase. This light on his face was from a sky panel that we put deep in the background, and that we knew we were going to use it later on, so it worked nicely just lighting his face here. This light here was from a large CRLS reflector, bouncing the sun through the window behind the camera. Then we also tried to bounce the sun again with a silver board going across, but it didn't really work, so that's why that's there. That tube light there is this light here behind the door, and that's just adding a bit more interest and contrast to the scene. And some little things like this aren't necessarily planned. If you get to a place that you're pretty happy with the lighting, and maybe the costume or the art department or something's taking a bit longer, you can just add little things in here and there. And if you have a good gaffer, they'll suggest stuff like that. So it's just those little 2% things that make every shot a bit better. So what I probably would plan for is bigger things like, all right, we're having the key light coming through this window, and then we're also having a hard light next to it. And that's the overall look. And then knowing that in the truck, there's going to be tube lights and other things like that we can use to shape the scene if we have time to do it. This next shot is sort of a mid shot of our dad character. So we had that same daylight coming through the window, and that's moved ever so slightly camera left, so it's not front lighting him too much. In the background, we had that sky panel through the window, and that's just adding a bit of detail on the wall. Then we reused that tube light and had that overhead, giving him a bit of a backlight. And this light here is something that the gaffer made. I don't know, it's like a bicolor panel light basically. So we just used that to boost the level of the actors' faces sometimes when we needed it. Deep in the background here, there's these windows and they were overexposed. So we covered them up with some curtains in the shot. And if you're on your own or with a minimal crew, these are just the little things that usually would just get left aside. So having a crew to quickly be able to do that while you're doing other things is pretty helpful. Then we swing around and get this shot of this guy, and because he's sort of facing away from the window, we needed to wrap that light around him. So we bounced that hard light from outside into this board that's on the table, which is held up by what every gaffer should have in their lighting truck. Kitchen knives and a tin of tomatoes. Fucking professionals we are. When you're shooting 3 or more people at a table and everyone has a line, it starts getting quite complicated because this person starts talking to this person, so you have these 2 shots. Then she joins in, so we need to see them looking at each other. Then he looks at her, so we need to see that. And it just goes on and on like that. And this is just a 30-second TV commercial. When you start having scenes like this in longer format, you end up just spending a huge amount of time around a table just collecting shots. So if you're ever having a scene of people sitting around a table, just know that it's going to take a bit longer just collecting all of those shots. This shot of our kid walking in was lit with the CRLS reflector, just bashing straight through the window, which is bright. It's like an 18K going straight in. Then we had those same lights on the table in the foreground. And just to see him a bit more, we had a sky panel tucked around the corner here with some diffusion on it, which is sort of lighting him so he's not a silhouette as he walks up to the table. Then we just added a bunch of smoke so we could see that beam. And this was one of my favorite shots. It's just got some layers, and I like the 70s sort of art department of the house. I think it looks pretty cool. All right, that's it. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.